Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Hot Program. I am your host with the most, all the way from the East Coast. And as always, good people, I am in airplane mode. And now I am joined by a man who needs no
Lens
photo.
flare
I'm
or
trying to I'm
glare.
trying to go with like light. Who needs no light.
He needs only a small, inexpensive desk lamp with the
And
shade on it.
it needs no introduction. How you doing today, my one
Yes,
black friend?
I'm okay. This is my studio lighting
You know what
for the
though?
guest bedroom here.
That it's actually a very like popular stylistic decision. Just
Hmm.
sort of like in the dark room. It's like a very professional look. I like a lot of very serious content creators uh go with that aesthetic.
And
And
they do the
especially looks
blue
good for black
background.
men. Yeah, because it's like, it mutes everything in the background.
All that stuff's
Um
in California.
yeah, it makes it
So
makes it really nice. Yeah, how's the house shopping going?
we are going to look at open houses today. And I have lots of comments on this. I've been thinking about making a video about it. Um, our house in California is not selling. We're approaching 80 days on the market. Average to sell is 80 days, and we're basically knocking on that door. So I think the 1st of December, I'm going to say to my realtor, I've tried it your way. Now let's try it my way. A brief explanation for our audience here. There was a big lawsuit because sellers were being asked to pay realtor fees for the buyers. And this went on for years. When I bought my house, the seller paid the realtor fee.
Wow.
Well, now, thanks to that lawsuit, that's negotiable. I had said to my realtor, because the price she was asking for my house initially, I said, that's more than I expected. So I'll go ahead and pay the seller's fees. I mean, the buyer's fees for the realtor up to 3%. She's like, no, you don't have to do that unless they ask for it. I'm like, I think I should do that. Why did I think I should do that? At the price that my house was listed for, it was about $25,000 that the buyers would have to come up with in addition to putting their 3%, 5%, 10% or
Oh, so that's
more
why the
down
seller's
on the
paying
house.
it to keep the price down for the buyers. Because if the buyer has to pay it, then it gets
There are
folded
fewer
into the
buyers.
price.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fewer people will have that money. Now think of it this way. If I am still selling my house and I'm charging them that money anyway, I'm essentially giving them their money back. But what they don't need is that money in their pockets to pay their realtor. And my perspective was any realtor who's kind of greedy knows, hey, let me get these people to buy this house. Yeah, it costs a little more money, but it doesn't cost them a little more money out of their pocket. So they're more likely to be able to get into it. Because think about it, that
Oh, yeah, it gets folded into the
$25,000,
mortgage.
that's right, gets rolled right in.
Yeah.
So the objection that they could have to, well, we can't afford it. Well, in fact, this is more affordable than a house that costs less money because this guy's paying your buy-in fees to even get the house. Like you can't get any house unless you come up with that 3% or the seller pays the 3% or
Wow.
2% or whatever your contract with your buyer's agent is. For instance, my agent here in Indiana is 2%. If she is listing the house, so she represents seller and buyer, then she gets 3%. But I'm just paying her 2% for her trouble walking us around, driving us around, blah, 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 for us to look at houses. But I'm a weird buyer in that I've told her I will look at every single house you send me online first. If I like the house, I'll drive there on my own to see the neighborhood and see if I like the outside of the house other than in pictures, right? And
Yeah.
if I do, then I will tell you, hey, let the seller know that my family and I want to see the house. and then we can make an offer on it. So for her, for our agent, our buyer's agent, when we're going to buy a home, we are less work for her because we're willing to do a lot of the work ourselves, right? We'll look ourselves, we'll drive around ourselves, and then when it's time to get serious, she comes into play. So there's all these weekends she doesn't lose trying to help us figure out what we want.
Yeah.
We know. And so I'm all about saving her time. I probably could have told her, how about you do it for 1.5? And she probably would have said yes because my approach doesn't occupy more of her time. It occupies a minimal amount of her time. That's not everyone. So I think 1st of December, probably switching tact on my house in California and say, okay, I'm going to raise the price, but I'm going to pay that 3%.
Mm. All right. Well, that is your weekly dose of real estate
Yeah.
advice.
Next on Game of
Yeah.
Homes. Next week on Game of Homes.
Game of Homes. I like that. All right. Let's jump into our video for this week. So it's called Christianity Makes No Sense. And, you know,
Oof.
I think you can see my one black friend is giddy with anticipation. So he sent me this video and said, this
Oh
video
yeah.
says a lot of things I can't say. So the question for the audience this week is, why can't we say these things? Because again, part of what I'm trying to convince people of here is that I do think there's a sense in which history may judge us skeptics and non-believers even more harshly than it judges believers,
We can count
simply
on it.
simply by saying, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna call it the age of religion because I'm hoping the internet that this religion thing doesn't survive the internet, so people are gonna look back.
Ooh.
Some people call this the age of information, and then there's a Canva keynote I'm trying to check out where they talk about the upcoming era as the age of imagination. The idea being, first off, they're just trying to market their new software and
Yeah.
stuff, but the idea being, we had this age of information where you know information became ubiquitous. It's like over most of human history, it was so limited. Now it's so ubiquitous, and now we have to ask, what kind of world do we want to live in? Um, and so now it's about imagining the type of world we want to live in. So anyway, I just think in the future, when people look back at the age of religion, they will say, what about these non-believers? What about all of these people that could see through it, that knew it was BS, but they could not find the 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 courage or the character or whatever it is to actually, why did it take them so long to actually try to end religion? And I think that's only partially fair analysis. I think the part of the analysis that they would be missing is the same part of analysis that I think a lot of us are missing, which is you have to understand the level of indoctrination favoring and supporting the religion, even for those that were not religious, especially those that were raised in the religion. In other words, y'all, I think the reason we're not effective at opposing religion isn't just um, a lack of conviction. I think that's part of it. I think part of it is um, just avoidance. Quite frankly, I think it's just being afraid of being uncomfortable. But I think another part of it is the religious dogma that is still in our psyche. I think a lot of us were still taught to turn the other cheek and love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. And a lot of that ideation about how to deal or not deal with conflict, I think, is still hindering people who don't realize that a lot of those things have become part of our social expectations, but they don't necessarily serve us well because they effectively just reinforce the status quo. So that's kind of my take on it. Go ahead.
I think part of what's going on, and I speak for myself in this, I think when future generations look back at us non-religious folk of this future, I think society will ultimately become irreligious for the most part. Large societies like the United States, Canada, Denmark, larger countries, England, will become irreligious, even regardless of how big faith is there now. And they'll have more of a dependence on science than they do. Like the understanding will be science has brought us this. Inventors have brought us this far, not gods. But now I think there's a politeness and a respect that's there from many non-religious people that is sort of laissez-faire. Let them be and let them figure it out on their own, right? I don't want to participate. I don't want communion wine. I don't want this or that. I don't want to attend a church service. And we're seeing less and less in terms of church services. Folks, as I house hunt here in Indiana, right? I'm in Northeast Indiana. If I wanted to buy a deconsecrated church, I don't even have to try. Like they're out there, they're for sale, and they're spacious. Um, I can get one for sure. And what does that say? That says not enough people continue to go there to pay the mortgage or to support it. And we're talking, I rarely see a church for sale for more than $140,000. You get the building, you get the parking lot, you get, I think they take the coffee pot with them when they go, but it's there. If you wanted to open up, and some cities will let you do it, a bar or a coffee house or something like that, you could do it. And think of how, compared to where some people live, how affordable 140,000 is, or
Yeah, it's
98,000. It's a
that's like exciting, the thought of like everybody repurposing the churches. I mean, I could definitely use a repurposed church. I mean, we could do all
you may
sorts of stuff.
have one in your area.
Yeah,
And
matter
go ahead, Pastor.
I was just gonna say they should all be that way, almost mandatory, because I do think churches are so useless and they're such con artists that even I thought about saying I don't like when churches do charity. I don't like when churches do book pack drives, soup kitchens, the AA meetings. And don't get me wrong, I worked at a church that was involved in all of that. I absolutely did all of that when I was part of the religion. But as a non-believer, I don't think they should be doing any of that stuff. Matter of fact, I think they should be prohibited from doing that stuff. Because we know they only we know they only do it to proselytize to people. We wouldn't let anybody else do that. We wouldn't celebrate anybody else doing like a soup kitchen. If I did a soup kitchen, but I was like trying to sell you timeshares, like people would not think that that was okay. They would recognize. Matter of fact, I went to Mexico, man. I got in a whole thing. Somebody tried to tell me it's timeshare, and they like lied to me about how much time commitment was involved and stuff like that. I mean, that stuff was infuriating. I mean, I literally almost got in a fight probably with the cartel. Like I literally had to care because I was mad. I was like, you told me it was going to take X amount of time. It's taken twice that. So I just think that like churches, even when they do the right thing, they do it for the wrong reason. So yeah, it would be great if we could build actual community centers that don't proselytize to people. We could put an actual soup kitchen in there that didn't
Okay.
proselytize to people. We could,
A
use
medical
it
clinic of
for,
some kind.
yeah, and then we could have like community events in the sanctuary,
Hmm.
concerts, like all sorts of stand-up comedy, like it just become another venue essentially.
Yeah,
Lots of meeting rooms, full kitchen, maybe some living quarters for people transitioning through housing. I mean,
that's right.
now we're talking. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump into
Okay.
this video. I'm sure we'll have opportunity more to think about what's going on. All right, gang. So yeah, so the goal is to think about, can you say these things to people and why or why not? Let's hit the right button.
Imagine
Oh,
this:
and
a religion that
Pocket
tells
Locker, it's going to make the comment about logic at very early on. Just pause it immediately after, because that's what I sent you screenshots of first. Where I'm like, I cannot believe this is said. And this is probably an AI video. I don't think a human being wrote this.
Uh, yeah, that's a
And
good.
I certainly don't think a human being narrated it. I think it's
Yeah,
all
yeah.
AI.
Okay, okay.
Tells you to love your enemies while damning those who don't believe in the right invisible being. A creed that preaches humility, but builds palaces of gold. A faith that claims perfection, yet constantly edits its own holy book through interpretation, translation, and convenient moral revision. Welcome to Christianity, where contradictions aren't bugs in the system, they're the operating system itself. The story begins, as all good myths do, with a garden, a snake, and two people who apparently ruined everything by eating fruit. Not nuclear war, not genocide, fruit. And for this cosmic dietary slip, every generation thereafter inherits a moral debt so vast that even newborns are considered spiritually bankrupt.
Can
The
you pause it?
solution? Believe that an invisible deity.
Okay. So in the opening, it's presenting Christianity as absurd. That's what it's saying. It's being very brief about it and saying this is literally what these people believe. It's very dispassionate about the way it's saying it because I'm pretty sure it's AI,
Yeah.
but also it's very plain faced. Like from the outside looking in, guys, this is how a computer probably sees it.
Yeah, no, I definitely think it's AI, and I think that that's what's interesting about it. Like you're saying, it's in a sense because it's a robot. You know, first off, I think it's interesting in the sense that you have to talk to it a certain kind of way because one of the problems I have with AI is they're usually so wishy-washy and agreeable that it might toe a certain line. So um I've prompted it with like religious stuff before, and it'll kind of try to sit on the fence a little bit. And I actually think that that's problematic because I'm like, you're not being honest about how the weaknesses of the other side. I'm trying to think of what the most recent thing that happened about was, but anyway. So yeah, I think that's kind of my thing here. It's like it's willing to say it more plain spoken than a lot of us are. And I also think it's interesting too because it is sort of the outsider perspective in the sense of if you were an alien and you showed up to Earth and you asked what this Christianity is, this is what they would have to explain to you. But it's also the insider perspective, and again, that gets at our superpower of being former believers. And I think I think that that's actually important. I hesitated because I literally just thought of a conversation that I had yesterday with somebody I met on a dating app. That it's like when I start talking to somebody, I rarely mention the show, or I rarely mention doing podcasts because, of course, the natural question is, well, what's your podcast about? And then, and then it's like, oh, it's about how fucked up and ridiculous religion is.
And
But part
society, and society.
in society, yeah. And the issue is that I ground it in atheism. I always do that. I always say it's I'm an atheist or whatever, and I go from there. And it's so threatening and off-putting to believers. And I'm realizing that I'm always leaving out my superpower. I'm because look, when you come at it, you say I'm an atheist, you're immediately an outsider. You're immediately like, well, what type of fucked up shit is that? And then the questions, well, what are you trying to get them to believe? And what are you converting them? Like like their brains are so high. But the thing to tell them is, no, I'm a former Christian.
Mhm.
I'm saying this because I think they lied to me. Like that really changes the entire tone of the conversation. And so I'm just saying that like this is what we know as insiders. We grew up on this, and we know as former believers that it's not just what the outsiders are saying, it's what the insiders are saying. It is this, and that's what's so crazy about all this. Is it's like maybe we need the AI to show us the tone we should be taking. Now, in reality, I think there's a lot of content creators that are taking the right tone, like Joel Reads Bible and Matt Dillahunty and Aaron Ra and Godless Engineer and, you know, Uncle Bobby. The list goes on of people who I think are really willing to say what we need to say. But yeah, I think this is the direction we need to go. And to be honest, I think it's a similar thing to what we're seeing in our politics. I think we were all saying for years, you can't mess with MAGA, you can't concede anything to these Trumpists. But I think people really were stuck on this BS. And that's part of the fake white naivete that we've talked about. I think folks have always been willing to negotiate power with bigots, because quite frankly, they're not impacted by a lot of it. And so they are willing to negotiate, especially if negotiating means it's going to mostly dramatically impact marginalized people. I just think that's the reality of the situation. If it doesn't bother you, of course, you're willing to put somebody else's discomfort on the table. But people were, you know, you have to meet them where they're at. You gotta embrace them. Don't be mean to them, you know. And I think we're seeing the shift where people realize that didn't work. That didn't get us anywhere. And now people are coming out swinging. And you even see how, like in the most recent election, not only did people go at Mamdani, and Mamdani just will come out and say whatever needs to be said, but you even had that guy win the attorney general race. I don't know if it's Virginia or I forget where it was, but he had basically come out and said, you know, something about political violence, that, like, you know, his enemies or whatever should be shot, and the Democrats voted for him anyway, right? That's a complete shift from Michelle Obama saying, when they go low, we go high, to now the Democratic electorate saying, oh, did he make jokes about shooting MAGA? Yeah, we don't give a fuck. Put him in there anyway, because people are tired of bullshit. So that's what I think ultimately is going to happen with religion. That it's there's going to be a shift in the culture, and Christianity. Got to give it to you. Y'all are bringing it on. Y'all are ruining Christianity for the rest of the world, because they're just behaving so badly. The world is going to hell in a handbasket in the name of Jesus, and people are just sick of it. And then you have their behavior. Like, Christians just they don't behave well. Like, they have to defend all this nonsense, and they're not good people. And so I think it's kind of unraveling.
There's I think Christians have it tough. I'll explain why. There are people who behave like the Bible says they should, for the most part, as a Christian. And then there are the other people just claiming it because they know it's a useful title. They think they're Christians because they believe in God or Jesus or whatever. They can't tell you jack crap about what the Bible says. They don't know anything. And if we look at their behavior, they're doing the very exact opposite thing a lot of the time. They don't believe the same thing. They believe the opposite thing a lot of the time. Now, why is that? It's because they don't understand what they say they are. They don't. They have a version of it that they've made themselves remarkably comfortable with, that is cruel and brutal and ignores Matthew 25 utterly. It ignores the things in the Bible that says, you know, Christians shouldn't speak with a foul mouth, that they should be kind, that if you're asked for your coat, give them your cloak also, or something, or your tunic, give them your cloak also. All that stuff gets ignored. And what they think Jesus was is an ass kicker who came along beating up on the Romans. He didn't. Who came along beating up on the Pharisees and the teachers of the law and the Sadducees. There's one instance of what's told twice of the temple tantrum, where he fashions a cord and whip or whatever and goes around and clears out the temple. Okay, but he didn't walk around doing that every day. He didn't go from town to town doing that, as far as we know, right? There's no ass kicker Jesus until you get to Revelation. Then all of a sudden he's a badass and he takes it out on non-believers, mostly. If you read Revelation more closely, he takes it out on liars and certain types of people who are immoral. And, so there's no hope for Donald Trump. He's going to hell if there is one. And he probably won't be asked to be management there. Um,
All right,
so,
so date. Oh, go ahead.
no, I think it's clear. They have an idea of what they think Christianity is, but it isn't that. It isn't that at all. And if you
Right,
leave the
right.
United States and you go to other countries, you'll probably see something that more closely mimics what biblical Christianity asks of people. And they don't even know about that. They don't even know it exists. Like and I'm not being critical of my wife here. I mentioned going to church with someone. She's like, no, no, no. Well, my wife believes in God. My wife believes in Jesus. She practices the Afro-Cuban religion. Will she go to church with just anybody like locally around here? Not on your life. If there's some big event that they're doing for charity, she's happy to volunteer, right? And even I am, depending on what it is. I've been told about this event that was done like a prom night for people who have special needs. And I'm like, next time they do this, let me know. I'd like to volunteer, you know, throwing a party for people who are deserving like that. That sounds like a wonderful idea to me. And I don't need to believe in your God to want to do it. I don't have treasure in heaven that I need to look at when I get there or
It's
something
just
of
a
that
little,
nature.
I don't know. It's just a little, I don't trust him. I couldn't trust him. I wouldn't want to be a part of it. I mean, I get it.
Well, that's
I
you.
really
It's
do.
it's not for
It's just
you.
me. Yeah, it's just not for me. It's
Yeah.
just not for me.
And
Because again, I think they're going to be proselytizing to a very marginalized group and like
and
using that particular group to to bolster
I'm
their reputation.
Pocket Locker. I'm going to prove your point a little. Not only is it not for you, most of the people who go to that church didn't volunteer. That same church that held this event has trouble getting its own people to
Wow.
volunteer to
Wow.
look after the kids in the children's ministry. They have trouble getting their own people in the congregation to do it.
Yeah, I mean,
Same building, same
yeah.
group.
I got to be honest with you. I don't think most of the people that are in the culture of Christianity are charitable people. I think that's another. That's just a whole nother part of the myth making. But yeah, Dade asked Jew Almighty versus Antonio Speaks. Whose side are you on? I don't know Jew Almighty that well. I've just looked it up and saw that they responded to Antonio's stuff. I'm on the side of Antonio Speaks for sure, and I think Black people have no reason at all to remain in Christianity. But I'm interested in this. I almost just switched topics and said, let's just cover the back and forth between those guys. But I think I might do it on the next
That's fine. You can send me a
Black
link so I can.
Freethinkers.
Oh, okay, I was going to say if you want to do it on Hot Program, send me a link so I can get familiar with it.
All right, all right. All right, let's go ahead and roll this.
Impregnated a virgin with himself, gave birth to himself, and later sacrificed himself to himself so he could forgive you for
Exactly,
breaking rules he
PC.
created in the first place. If that makes perfect sense to you, congratulations. Theology has successfully short-circuited your common sense. You see, the brilliance of Christianity isn't in its logic, but in its immunity to it. It was engineered to
Pause
be
it.
untouchable by reason.
Pause it, please. That's when I had to screenshot that and send it to Pocket Locker, folks.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
The
Brutal.
strength isn't in its
Brutal.
logic, but it's immunity to it.
Yeah, I can't say that to somebody. I just couldn't say that in a discussion, especially if it's somebody I care about. I can't say that stuff.
But honestly,
I can
I
say,
think
go ahead.
I think that's the duty of care. So one of the things that convicted me,
Interesting.
one of the things that convicted me was one, we have to talk really about consent. Like it's crazy to me that people don't think more about this, y'all. But to me, if we're gonna talk about consent, that conversation should not just be about sex. Like, yes, yes, if you're going to have a sexual activity with someone, you should get their consent. But to me, it speaks to the fact that we value consent in society. In other words, we're saying without consent, people don't truly have autonomy, right? So you have to understand that if you think somebody truly believes Christianity, especially if they've been in the church their whole life, it's not even the case for new believers. It's not even the case for adult believers, but it's especially not the case for if they've been in their whole life. They've been lied to, and they have been lied to since the fact that they were a little child, since before they could defend themselves intellectually, before their brain was fully formed. And even now, they're not consenting to be lied to. They think this is true. And apparently everyone else in their life, and this is where the burden comes to us, because apparently everyone else in their life is either incapable or unwilling to actually tell them. Either everybody else in their life believes this nonsense or isn't invested enough in them to care, right? They may have coworkers that don't believe it, but who cares? I'm not going to deconvert one of my coworkers. I don't care. They may have friends that they golf with that are Jewish or some other religion, but again, they're not going to get into it over a game of golf. So there really may not be anybody else who cares or understands enough to really tell them, hey, I think you've been mistaken. The other thing is, it becomes a bit condescending, and somebody else pointed this out, but it basically becomes a way of saying, well, I freed myself from it. I figured out it was bullshit and nonsense and walked away. But I get for you, I hate to say this, emotionally stunted, desperately undereducated, and like woefully incapable people, we just got to let the little people believe. At the end of the day, we just got to let the little people believe. And I know most of us don't internalize our rhetoric that way. We don't see ourselves as the type of people who would talk like that, but I do think that's effectively where a lot of atheists are. We've basically just decided we are a certain degree of capable and we have a certain value that they just don't have. And hey, we can't really figure out why they still believe this stuff, so we're just gonna let it go. And you put those two things together, the fact that it's a bit condescending and the fact that these people never consented to be lied to. And I do really think that for people we care about and know, we should be willing to go there. Now, here's the big, I do have a caveat, but go ahead. So my caveat is just this.
Yeah, go ahead.
I know a lot of times they can't do it. Like they're just too far gone. They're just too emotionally dependent. They're just too whatever, needy, whatever it is. But then say that. Say that instead of telling me how reasonable they are. Say the truth, which is, you know what, I won't have this conversation with them because they are just so dogmatically sold out to Christianity and dedicated to dying a Christian, even if they figured out that it's not true and it's evil, so it's a waste of my time. I would at least say that that's honest. All right, go ahead.
Well, it's interesting you use the expression consent to be lied to. If one has read the book of Genesis, even the first few pages of the Bible, you immediately know what you're reading has to be an allegory or it's partially untrue, right? A God didn't take dust of the ground and make a human being. That's not how we work. That's not where we came from. We know that. The evidence for evolution is that good. We know. We know the Bible is wrong. We know the Bible is wrong when it says there's a metal sky dome surrounding the earth. We know it's wrong. It's not something we have to guess, right? We know
Right.
it's wrong. Can we make sense out of the Adam and Eve story as an allegory if we know the Bible uses, it'll reference people groups with animal names and also names of trees? So might that story not be about two people having a conversation with a snake and eating some fruit? It I think a logical person can be reached. And yes, they will understand, well, this simply must be an allegory for something else. Perhaps I should keep reading to understand what it's for. And if I tell you, it kind of never gets around to telling you what the meaning of the story is. It's just an allegory that's sitting there, and you don't get the privilege of knowing what it means, what it truly means. And it may not be uh, how Jewish you are, and how much of the Hebrew language you know and studied, and that it's very meaningful to you, or how Christian you are, that you know the Hebrew language and it's meaningful and you studied and it's dear to you. It may not be that at all. I probably could point out instances in the Bible where it's clear Paul didn't understand what was already said and what would be said in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. There were things they didn't understand, right? The biblical authors, they didn't understand each other sometimes. And that's why we have the Bible we have. That's why we see contradictions. That's why we don't see people being raptured up
Yeah.
2,000 years later, because
So
they didn't
yeah,
see
I
people raptured up back then.
but you touched on something important, which is I do think that's where we're at. I think we're at the place where we just know the Bible isn't true. And it's a weird uncanny valley, but I do think it's like evolution versus creation. It's at this point, to be a believer in one of these major religions is to be a flat earther. It is just a willful denial of the evidence. Go ahead.
You know, Pocket Lock, I didn't think of this association. Obviously, well, for me, this seems like an AI video that we're listening
Oh,
to.
definitely AI video.
And maybe in some respects, the Bible is performing a similar function in that we know if we ask AI a question, it can give us a wrong answer. And it can out and out lie to us. If you're doing like the conversational version, it will lie to you sometimes. And if somebody isn't paying attention, if somebody doesn't know better, they'll believe it. They'll take it as fact. They will use that information to proceed on something that may be potentially pivotal in their lives without even understanding how good the information is. I like to point out Ezekiel 20, where God gave it says he gave people statutes they could not live by, laws that were not good. So I have a brain. I'm fairly discerning. Um, I can point out some of the 613 commandments that aren't good. I can just point them out to you. They're not good. But there in the Bible is the God saying he gave the Hebrew statutes that were not good. If we can't turn on our brains and evaluate what we see, we're making a huge mistake.
I found one.
And go
Joel was
ahead.
talking about one the other day where, and I looked it up, where God says if the daughter of a priest engaged in prostitution, she should be burned alive. Be
That
burned.
sounds like a law that is not good. Oh,
Yeah,
a woman marrying her
the
rapist,
Levitical
having to
law.
marry her
Yeah, I mean,
rapist.
it's
That's
just.
not a good one.
I'm not even gonna have. I can't even have a conversation with somebody that claims to believe in this about morality, because I'm gonna hit them with that,
Hmm.
and that's gonna be it. All right. So let's get on. But Date said
Okay.
Christianity is a bigger issue. The problem is Black Christians think they are only a part of the solution. They don't see the harm that their belief system causes. Yeah, it's a crazy thing. So on one hand, first off, I need white believers to take responsibilities. This whole thing I have is at the end of the day, I think Christianity just is the religion of white supremacy. It just is what it is. And because of the white supremacy, that is why we cannot speak candidly in public about how untrue Christianity is. If Christianity, like right, because the same, like, if we bring up stuff from the Quran, or even stuff from, traditional Judaism, or stuff from any of these other religions around the world, Christians have no problem laughing that off. Christians have no problem pointing out that L. Ron Hubbard is the most prolific fiction writer on the planet. How could you be silly enough to believe a religion this man started? So they're willing to shit on everybody else's religion, but you can't do it to theirs. And so since you can't do it to theirs, they can't be honest about the fact that, yeah, sorry, black people, you're only Christians because we enslaved your ancestors, took your culture from you, and forced this on you. Like literally, we are incapable of speaking plainly about that historic truth. So now you have black folk who, yeah, they think that like all the bad stuff that happens with Christianity is happening over there on the white evangelical conservative side. And they don't realize that they literally have the same exact beliefs. They just don't vote Republicans because they know Republicans hate them. And so then they don't have like, you know, the black church is literally like scamming and conning people in the black community. And that's where people like Antonio are calling that out. And then he's also right about the fact that when you talk to black folk long enough, they're going to start to sound like white supremacists. And that's where you hear all of this, I'm a Christian before I'm black, and don't be so black that you're not a Christian, and just a whole bunch of mess. All right, I'm going to let her roll for a little, or sorry, let the AI roll for a little bit. Let's let it talk.
Any doubt is framed as a moral failure. Questioning is rebranded as sin. Belief, no matter how absurd, becomes a virtue. And ignorance, when baptized in faith, transforms into holiness. There's a reason the church survived centuries of scientific progress. It didn't have to win arguments, it only had to forbid them. And oh, how it forbade them. From Galileo to Giordano Bruno, the church's favorite method of persuasion was not debate, it was fire. Nothing silences heresy quite like a bonfire made of someone's ideas. Even now, the tactics are subtler, but the aim the same. Control thought by wrapping it in guilt. Make people terrified of doubt, and you can sell them certainty at any price.
And this is what a lot of people are experiencing. I got to be honest with you, gang. Like the passive aggressive way my family has dealt with all this, it tells me everything I need to know about Christianity. And that's what really keeps it. Even when we talk about why can't we say this stuff, we can't say this stuff because let's be honest, gang, y'all are afraid of your family and friends. Let's just keep it a whole 100, y'all. Y'all are afraid of what these people will do to you or say to you, or you're afraid that if you come out that your family's gonna be like, what? You're not a Christian. What? And then they might not talk to you. You might not get invited to holidays no more. If you're not fully financially secure, it's going to be much harder for you to get help. This is bullying. It is just flat out bullying, and that's what they do. To question is to volunteer to step outside the social circle and the comforts that come with it. So yeah, to me, this is what's operating on most of us.
Talk about that price. For centuries, salvation has been to subscription service with no refund policy.
No refund
You're born
policy.
a sinner. You spend your life tithing, confessing, obeying, and if you do it right, you might get the cosmic prize, eternal life. Not proof, not evidence, just the promise. But here's the catch. The same promise can't be verified until after you die. Religion is the only product sold exclusively on posthumous satisfaction. And it's not just belief. It's the psychology behind it that fascinates. Christianity thrives on human insecurity. It offers meaning to the lost, comfort to the grieving, forgiveness to the guilty, and fear to everyone else.
But what are we talking about to the point where I can sell you this idea and tell you, but you're not going to see it till after you die. Like, I just don't understand how that is not the ultimate, I've got a bridge to sell you. Like, it's just so crazy that we let that slide and people don't realize, hey, like, maybe I should question this thing that they're telling me I won't get to verify till after I'm dead. Like, maybe that is reason enough that I should be questioning this.
Well, While you're alive, if you're trying to tithe, give 10% to the church. Um, that 10% might make your life a lot better. It can buy you an education, which would enable you to give even more if you're willing. It can feed your family better. It can get you more reliable transportation to and from work, doctor appointments, and such. It could enable you to get something that is a medication that would heal you, as opposed to something that helps you stay broken. Uh, so I think that thought needs to go into it too. Um, we've all heard probably all heard the expression prayer works at roughly the same rate of chance. Well, why not come up with a prayer that tests this to see if the ideas are true? Um, David Smalley was confronted by a friend of his. David Smalley, I don't know if he's still an atheist, he was at one point, and he had a talk show. And David mentioned that he believed in, there being some sort of afterlife, like ghosts. And his friend said to him, which is more likely? Human beings have figured out that we survive death, continue on in another form. And instead of going to a laboratory with scientists and demonstrating it to them, they walk around old drafty houses making doors squeak and floors squeak. We can see there's some ridiculousness there. Now, can't we pray to those people who in the pray to God and say, hey, send us somebody like you did in the Gospel of Matthew, where all those people came out of the tombs. They were dead. They came out of the tombs and visited old friends. A resurrection within the Bible itself of a group of people, not just one person here or one person there, but a group of people. By the way, folks, if you are a Christian and you are listening, there is nowhere else in contemporary history that talks about that incident of lots of people rising out of their graves and going into town to greet old friends.
If you're a Christian watching
And
this,
the Bible ignores it too, for the most part. Go ahead.
we got it. So we're starting to source some leads about ways to interact with more Christians and maybe get them to call on the show or talk to them. I'm never confident that there's even a single believer watching these shows, although I certainly hope there is. I just want to say, if you're a Christian, first off, this just take this altar call. Just take this as an opportunity right now to undedicate your life to Christ. You absolutely need to.
Yeah, alter your life. Yeah.
Yeah. Second of all, like, you got to understand that you're paying this cost. Like it's when I do see Christians questioning us, it's very interesting that they don't realize that they're the ones paying the cost. You are the one that believes these things. You are the one that is trying to live your life according to what this God wants for you. You are the one that's dedicated your life to this. You are the one that may be giving up 10% of your income plus an offering. You are the one dragging yourself to church every Sunday. You are the one claiming that this book is everything to live by. You should be the one that wants to make sure it's true. I should not care more about Christianity being untrue as a non-believer than you are as a believer. And understand too that, like, you just got to understand that we're trying to speak truth to you. We may have fun, we may put a little emphasis on it, may do it with a little attitude, but ultimately we are trying to get through to you and communicate something to you that you have to start to wonder why no one else in your life is willing to be honest about. And that's the problem. The one thing I do understand for Christians, especially like just the way things tend to be in our current culture, it's just easier to silence the atheist. This is what happens. This is what I know is going to happen anytime I meet a believer on a dating app or something like that. As soon as they find out you're a non-believer, it's just easier to cut the non-believer out of your life and keep it pushing than it is to really wrestle with the fact that we might be right. All right, let's see how much more of this we can get through. It is action packed because it's straight punchlines. It's like the AI hit it. It's like the whole video is just punchlines.
It does what I can't do. I sugarcoat it and try to
Palatable.
make it palatable for someone. Like, I know this is hard for you to hear, so let me try to say it in a way that's beautiful to you,
You'd have to have
as
a
opposed to
kink
a way that's
for
brutal.
They'd say you'd have to have a kink for humiliation if you're in this chat and are Christian. Shout out to Dade. Dade also has a great channel. If you're not subscribed to Dade's channel, make sure you do that. Make sure you do
It teaches
that.
people to distrust their own moral instincts. You're not good because you choose good. You're good because God told you to be. Without
Also,
divine
cheers.
approval, even kindness becomes meaningless. It's moral outsourcing at a metaphysical scale. The irony is that the same faith that claims to set people free begins by convincing them they're slaves to sin, to the flesh,
Woo!
to the devil, to their own nature.
All right, I got to say this real quick.
Harsh.
You are slaves, and I gotta hit it with this. When we started Black Free Thinkers, that became quickly the slogan for it. No lords, no masters. And I want to repeat why it was. It was because that is the definition of being free. And I wanted that to be upfront in everything we do. Free people do not call anyone Lord or master. The only exception to some extent is landlord. And obviously we know that's a different word, right? But even the term landlord, most of us associate with what? A lack of freedom. Having a landlord means you are renting somebody else's home and the property is not yours. We all know that that is less autonomy than what? Owning your own home, right?
Yeah.
So to understand what it really means to be free, it is by definition to not have a lord, to not have a master. It also means to not have a king. So everyone walking around talking about Jesus is king, Jesus is Lord, Jesus is I'm Jesus's property. He created me. He can do what he wants. I will. He is my. He gives me my purpose. Right. He tells me. Think about this. He tells me who I should marry. He has determined for me who the right person for me to be with is. He orders my steps. He woke me up this morning and started me on my way. Come on now. Speaking of the Black Christians, I know how Black Christians talk. So understand that none of that has anything to do with freedom. And so I hit it with this. Because we do the biblical slavery debate a lot. We have the conversation of, does the Bible endorse slavery? Yes, the Bible endorses slavery. The Bible has a handbook on how to do slavery with all the provisions and the statutes and everything else. Okay. But beyond that, the very desire to be a Christian, Christianity is the desire to be a slave. You conceptualize all of it as God created you. You are God's property. Your life is literally just you're a puppet. Basically, you are a puppet. He is the puppet master. So it's just so important to me that people wrap their heads around this, because I'm not even going to entertain believers coming at me talking about freedom or Jesus will set you free or any of that, because this is literally the worship of slavery is what this faith is.
Christianity's genius lies in creating the
Now, Sumami came through and said, I will be willing to call a certain man my Lord and teacher, but ain't no man alive that fit the bill. Y'all have to get into it with Sumami about her particular preferences for who she prefers. But yeah, Sumami, we with you. Most of us are with you. We understand there's a certain context we might call somebody master or lord or daddy, but it's a whole different ball game. Yeah. And some of us might be kinky enough that we would like to do that in the church. But again, it's a whole different setup. I don't think we could do that in the current church. We have to take it over first.
Recently, Cherubusco had a church for sale for about $119,000.
Yo, could you imagine the strip club in like a former church? Call that mug like the sanctuary or something. I'm in there.
It pretends to cure. It wounds the mind and then offers itself as the bandage. Consider the central symbol of this belief system, the cross. Imagine if a modern doctor wore a necklace shaped like a syringe used in lethal injections, claiming it represents love. Christianity turned an instrument of torture into a logo of compassion. It's poetic in a dark way, the ultimate triumph of rebranding over reality. Then comes the strange arithmetic of morality. If someone murders, rapes, or steals, but accepts Jesus before dying, they get eternal paradise. Meanwhile, a kind, honest, rational person who simply finds the story unbelievable burns forever. Justice in this theology is not measured by deeds but by belief, as if the universe were less a moral system and more a divine popularity contest.
Yeah, and Uncle Bobby says this so well. The Christian God does not care what you do. It only cares what you believe. And I have to understand, I have to give people another thing. Because of this, Christians behave badly. I really do believe this. I believe if you're a religious person, you need to stop lying to yourself about morality. Your system is wholly immoral. Because for most of us, while we don't believe in sort of a divine cosmic court or justice or something like that, we understand that to be a good person, you have to actually strive to do better. You have to strive not to harm people. You have to strive to take accountability for your mistakes. You have to try to grow and be the type of person that doesn't continue to make those mistakes. Christianity tells you you can mess up as much as you want, just ask God for forgiveness and you're good. And Christians understand this, and that is why they just behave badly and then plan to ask for forgiveness, which just gives you more of a permission structure to continue to behave badly. And I just got to admit that, like, that's a huge, I mean, listen, Christianity just isn't true. It just flat out isn't true. But if I were to consider it based on morality, I would simply just look at Christians, see how poorly they behave, and realize that, like, I don't want anything to do with it. Like, there's this woman that, like, I guess, I don't know. I guess she's trying to date my dad or something like that. But the bitch is married. And, I think when she first tried to get with him, it was like, oh, like, my marriage is ending, whatever. So we moved from there. I think at the end of the day, she won't leave her marriage, I think, because she thinks she's a Christian. Like, oh, I'm a Christian woman, I can't leave my marriage. But you're cheating on your husband. Like, you're trying to have an emotional affair, you're trying to bridge
Mm-hmm.
that emotional affair into a real affair. Like, what type of fucked up shit is this? And I was like, I'm telling my dad, like, I don't have no respect for this shit. Don't show me. I don't want to hear about that woman. I don't want to talk to her. I don't want nothing to do with her. Cause
Well,
cause
your dad knows everything he needs to know about her from that alone.
from that alone, exactly.
He
But
should
this
stay away
is
from her too.
exactly. But this is the thing. It's like, for us, it's just so obvious. Like, you promise somebody monogamy, you deliver on that monogamy. If you can't deliver on that monogamy anymore, you have the conversation and you say, hey, I can't deliver on this monogamy anymore, so we're gonna have to end this or do something different. It's just amazing that, again, it's like you're citing your Christianity as the reason you're in this situation, and then it's so clear that you can't do the right thing, that you're incapable of doing what is so morally obvious to the rest of us. So this is and again, these same people, like, we could ask them, is it okay to, like, drown people? Is it okay to do genocides? Is it okay to do slavery? Is like they're going to say these things are not okay. Then we're going to point out to where their God does them in the Bible, and then they're going to tell us God works in delirious ways. Okay.
Mysterious ways. His ways are higher than ours. All things belong to God. He can do what he wants. That's the sort of answer we get, which, in my view, it's not a very courageous answer. It's a very safe answer, as if God was in the next room ready to come into this one and start beating people up for disagreeing with him. Um, Ladies and gentlemen, God doesn't have that kind of power. Any gods that have been proposed to human beings here on this earth that have made their way, the information about them has made its way back to me. There's no such being. There's no such being to fear. There's no such being to revere, and there's no such being to help you. wiggle your way out of a very bad series of arguments. It's just not going to happen.
Sumami said
And
these are the type of people that will end up murdering their partner instead of filing for divorce. Yeah, because again, though, but they don't believe in divorce, and it just ends up being like this just weird. And again, they say this stuff to us, and it's like it doesn't. I'm sorry, Christians, like none of that means anything coming from y'all. None of it means anything coming from y'all. All right, let's
The Bible,
roll.
we're told, is the perfect word of God. Yet it was written by dozens of anonymous men in different eras, edited repeatedly by councils, translated through empires, and still contains more contradictions than a politician during election season. The Old Testament God slaughters nations, delights in vengeance, and demands blood sacrifices. The New Testament God suddenly wants love and forgiveness. It's almost as if humanity evolved morally, and their God evolved with them, though the faithful would rather believe the opposite, that morality descended from the heavens fully formed rather than crawled upward from human empathy. Let's pause on that idea of empathy, a concept often hijacked by religion. Christianity claims to have invented love, as if humans were incapable of compassion before the Sermon on the Mount. Yet history tells another story. Kindness existed long before Christ, just as cruelty flourished long after him. If divine law were required for morality, then every non-believer would be a sociopath. And yet, the prisons aren't filled with philosophers. They're filled with people who think God is on their side.
There you go.
Faith, they say, moves mountains. Yes, but only metaphorically, which is convenient because no one's ever seen a literal one budge. Christianity thrives on metaphor precisely because reality refuses to cooperate.
There it
It
is.
asks people to accept mystery
That's
when
harsh.
evidence is
Reality
absent,
refuses to
revere
cooperate.
ignorance as a form of humility.
But look, it's the truth. It is the truth. Reality, nothing about this accords with reality. And then you have to be brainwashed into believing that that is a good thing. You have to be brainwashed into believing that it is okay, that none of this makes any sense. Yeah. But this is the truth of it, y'all. And that's what I mean when I said the question becomes, why aren't more of us saying these things? Why do we continue to pretend that somebody that believes this stuff is a good neighbor, that somebody that believes this stuff is a good coworker or a good person to have in your life? Like they might be, but they only are to the extent that they are not taking this stuff seriously and they're not actually following up on it. And if that's the case, then shouldn't they just walk away from it and become secular humanists anyway? I mean, if really, and that's the conversation. If really your concern is being the best person you can be, so that you are the best person for the rest of humanity, why would you lend your goodwill, good behavior, and good reputation to these inhumane lies instead of just becoming a secular humanist? It's like we have a system for that. We have something you can practice if that's how you want to be. It just isn't called Christianity. I'm sorry.
God works in mysterious ways is just theological code for, we have no idea, but please stop asking.
We
And
have
yet,
no idea, but
to its
please
credit,
stop asking.
Christianity is
Wow.
not stupid. It's psychologically brilliant. It offers a narrative that touches every corner of human emotion: fear, guilt, hope, awe, belonging. It gives cosmic meaning to suffering, purpose to pain, and an explanation for the unexplainable. But brilliance is not the same as truth. A fairy tale can be exquisitely crafted and still be false. A delusion can feel profound and still be a delusion. That's the paradox. Christianity doesn't survive despite its contradictions. It survives because of them. Contradictions create dependence. When something doesn't make sense, you're told to have more faith. The less it aligns with reality, the more holy it becomes. It's an emotional Ponzi scheme, belief sustained by the promise that doubt will be punished. And of course, the marketing is unbeatable. Eternal happiness or eternal torture. Choose wisely. It's like a divine hostage negotiation. Love me or burn. No healthy relationship
Also,
would function.
yeah, it's also it also really messes up a person's motivation in human terms because it makes the natural so mundane, right? Like the thing that faith does is it imbues everything with that sense of magic, that sense of specialness, where your good behavior is holy or divine. When that gets stripped away, it's like, oh wait, so you want me to be faithful to my wife because I promised her in front of our family and friends that I would be faithful to my wife. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. You made the promise. We think you should honor the promise. Again, if you can't honor the promise anymore, you go back to the table for a renegotiation. And if you can't renegotiate, you end the marriage. Yep, that's it. That's it. So wait, I'm supposed to be an honest person just because it's better to be honest and tell the truth? Yeah, yeah, that's it. Yep. See, when you're honest, then like we can believe what you say, and then I'll be more honest with you, then you can believe what I say. And then even when we have to deal with uncomfortable truths, we can deal with those uncomfortable truths in the light of the knowledge and move forward as adults. Like being a normal, healthy, functioning adult becomes so uninteresting to these people. It's just so you take away the sense of specialness, and that's a huge problem, because that is why these people don't want to deal with reality. They've been told their whole life God is love, and now they're being told love is just a thing people did because they needed each other to survive. What type of bullshit is this? I will give it that. I will give it it's done a great job of marketing magic such that people are just uninterested in reality. Reality just feels mundane and boring.
Function this way. But somehow, when the abuser is immortal, people call it devotion. Christianity moralized fear, then sanctified submission. Still, millions cling to it, not because it's true, but because it feels safe. Certainty is addictive. The idea that everything happens for a reason, that death is not the end, that justice awaits beyond the grave, it's comforting. It gives the suffering a sense of order, even if the order is imaginary. And perhaps that's the tragedy. Christianity feeds the deepest hunger of the human soul, the hunger for meaning, by serving illusions dressed as answers. People rarely defend Christianity because it makes sense. They defend it because it makes them feel safe. Logic never built a church, but fear did. Fear of meaninglessness, fear of death, fear that morality might just be a human invention and not a celestial decree. Remove the divine scaffolding, and for many, the world feels terrifyingly unsupervised. The appeal of Christianity lies not in its truth, but in its promise of cosmic supervision. Someone's watching, someone cares, someone will sort it all out in the end. It's a comforting fantasy in a chaotic universe. A celestial parent figure who never leaves, never dies, and always forgives, no matter how badly his children behave. But that same promise has a dark side, because if everything is preordained, if suffering is part of God's plan, then injustice becomes sacred, pain becomes divine. A child's cancer, a test of faith, a war, a judgment, a famine, a lesson. Christianity doesn't solve suffering, it romanticizes it. It teaches people to find beauty in pain, to see cruelty as mystery, to praise submission as virtue. Thy will be done, the most efficient way ever devised to make people accept what they should resist. And that's where its power truly lies, in obedience disguised as devotion. For 2,000 years, Christianity has managed to convince billions that surrender is freedom, that not thinking is a form of faith, that morality requires an invisible overseer. It's psychological alchemy, transforming passivity into virtue. The slave who loves his master is no longer a slave, they say. He's faithful. But devotion doesn't cancel servitude, it perfects it. You see this mechanism everywhere in Christian culture. Doubt is vilified, curiosity is dangerous, and moral autonomy is blasphemy. When people act kindly out of empathy, they're told it's really God working through them. When they act cruelly, they're told it's the devil. Either way, the self is erased. Christianity reduces human beings to moral puppets dangling between two supernatural forces, as if the nobility of goodness depends not on the heart, but on divine endorsement. This dependency infects every moral equation. Take forgiveness. Christianity demands unconditional forgiveness because God forgives everything. But if forgiveness is given automatically, morality collapses.
The funny thing too is though, like
That's pretty strong.
it is, but it's also
That
interesting
goes
that
to what we were saying earlier.
I also think Christians are very unforgiving people. Fundamentally, I really do. I really do think that the attitude of most Christians is like, "Fuck that. We don't really do forgiveness." Like you have to remind Christians that they're supposed to forgive people. I think a lot of them are like mean spirited and vindictive. I think they think of it's sort of like Jesus forgives you, but the rest of us think you're an asshole. Like I remember showing my students some of the rapture stuff, the rapture talk stuff. And the ones most offended by it were Christians. And of course, their whole thing was, to jump on these people because, nobody's supposed to know the day or the hour or whatever. And I showed them like follow-up videos where some of those people came back and like apologize for being wrong and misleading people and talked about how they sincerely believe but they were mistaken, and they were like, nah, nope, I don't forgive you, nope, like nope, you shouldn't have done, nope, you crawl, like to them, like they went to, so it's that internal, and with the internal it was like, no, you misrepresented the faith, like you made Christianity look bad.
A pocket locker,
Double middle fingers.
In a way,
repents.
Sorry. I hit that by accident. Go ahead.
In a way, they kind of are. Let me show you. Didn't we try to demonstrate this? So the Bible itself says this: if a prophet says a thing and it doesn't come true, that prophet is not from God, and you're supposed to kill them. You are supposed to kill them. Now, let's not have any of that. Let's not have murder because someone was misleading and wrong. Any of us could be wrong. Most people wouldn't propose that a rapture is going to occur at any specific point. So we're not going to be wrong about that, most people. But there will be some who will play with that idea, and they will be wrong. But the Bible is very explicit on how these prophets are supposed to be dealt with. When they say something that is from the Lord, right? They're supposed to be speaking a word from the Lord, and it's untrue. Our society has taken the high road and said it's illegal to kill people, right? You can't do that.
Yeah.
This isn't a matter of self-defense where you're trying to defend your life, your property, your family, someone else, another human being. This isn't that. This person is just wrong, and you shouldn't believe him anyway because your Bible says nobody knows the day or the hour. Now, it's not that Christians across the board accepted that no one should know the day or the hour and poo-pooed this brother Joshua's predictions, plural, of when the rapture would be, or Harold Camping's predictions of when the rapture will be. Rapture doctrine isn't biblical. I'd be willing to bet a fair number of Christians, maybe more than half of the United States, don't understand that the rapture is not biblical at all. They don't understand that. They just simply know we will be raised incorruptible. That's what Paul says. And so that's where they're focusing on some kind of way.
But yeah,
we will meet Jesus in the air, something I think that is misunderstood in the Bible, because in Aramaic, to come on the clouds means to succeed in a mission. So maybe that's all Jesus said he was going to do. He was going to succeed in his mission to seek and save the lost. And it doesn't mean to be a cloud rider like Yahweh in the Old Testament is the cloud rider. Maybe it doesn't mean that. Maybe they misunderstood each other. That's
people are pointing out in chat how much better our human morality is. Like we would obviously
better.
Yeah, I mean it's insane. All right, let's try to get through a little bit more of this and then we'll wrap up for the day.
The victim's family grieves forever. Justice is deferred to an afterlife that no one can
See
verify.
the problem with this is like it has the right tone, but I we need the human delivery. That's why we need people to get in there because people have the relationship. This video is awesome, but I can't it'd be hard for me to imagine like a believer sitting through this. I sat through this. I listened to this like I don't know, on my way to work or way home from work or something like that. So I'm kind of just in the car driving, and I love it because again, it's so on point. But yeah,
It's very matter of fact.
shout out to Joel Reads Bible and Uncle Bobby and Antonio. We talked about Antonio earlier. The name of that channel is Antonio Speaks. Gotta make sure we get some of the brothers in there. Shout out to Esther, the Afro atheist. Esther is really direct with her content, especially speaking of things going on in Africa. And you know, she's always telling people your pastors, they're lying to you, religion is a scam. Yeah, you know, there's people out there that are trying to give voice to this.
Convenient, isn't it? The system ensures that moral
Dade
debts are
himself,
never truly
actually.
settled, just
Shout out to
spiritually
Dade.
outsourced
Dade
to
ain't
a
one to
cosmic
play with.
accountant. And then there's the obsession with sin. Christianity's entire architecture is built on the idea that human nature is fundamentally corrupt. You're told that your instincts are unreliable, your desires dangerous, your mind deceitful. In short, you can't trust yourself. Only God can be trusted, conveniently represented by those who claim to speak for him. The church didn't invent sin to save humanity. It invented sin to control it. Convince people they're broken, and they'll beg you for the cure. Consider how this played out in history. Medieval peasants worked themselves to exhaustion, believing their suffering was holy. Women were told their pain in childbirth was a divine curse. Scientists were condemned for seeking truth outside the Bible, and the institution that preached humility demanded unquestioned power.
Okay, so here's another thing that honestly terrifies me about these people, y'all, is they love work and they obsess with work. And I think that so much of this culture's idolization of work comes from these people. And of course, we have some really nasty intermingling of Christianity and capitalism that we're dealing with in society. But it really does scare me because if you listen to these people in their own spaces, you will hear a lot of pastors say things like, man was created for work. They say that there's a direct tie there. And gang, I just got to tell you, like that sucks, and it sucks because it's so dehumanizing. When you really look at human evolution, the diversity of human lifestyles, the diversity of ways people go about provisioning for themselves and their families, it's very clear that like man was definitely not meant to work the way we do in modern society. Like this is just some weird aberration. And like, fine, we have to work, like that's the way the system is, but we're supposed to make the system better. And it scares me that we can't if most of the people believe that work is actually the ideal state of the system. And just to me, like that's just so screwed up because people even think better of their pets. Like we think our pets deserve housing, food, healthcare, sometimes education, all of that. And they ain't never earned a dollar for nobody. Ain't never earned a dollar for nobody, but just because they're cute, they make you feel good, and they're part of your family, you think they deserve housing, healthcare, food, medicine, fun, toys, all of that. Okay? But then you turn around to your child and teach your child that your child should expect to be homeless, not have health insurance, and not be able to feed itself if it doesn't go work for somebody else. And again, it's one thing to teach your child that is the state of affairs, but it's a whole nother thing to teach your child that should be the state of affairs. The other thing is, you know what I'm saying?
I have to chime in about this. I was hoping, like, I hope there isn't a connection, so I don't bring this up. You finish your point, but I literally
So I'll just say
believe
this. So
my ears or something I heard
my
last week.
my response when somebody asks me what is your dream job is I do not dream of labor. I do not dream of labor. But also, y'all, the world that we live in, we have to take this head on. We have to take it head on, one, because our quality of life is falling behind, right? We're falling behind societies that have universal health care, universal basic income, free college, all of these things. We're falling behind, right, in terms of our quality of life. And then on top of that, we are facing unprecedented technological challenges, right? We are facing a situation where the same way it was more profitable to ship our jobs overseas because it costs less money to hire somebody from the global south than it does to pay an American minimum wage that still has not increased. Our wages have been flat for over 50 years. Okay. And now we have this AI stuff and the robots and the automation and the Internet of Things, and a lot of us are going to be put out of jobs. So we need a new social contract that says what would this society look like if they were successful in getting rid of all of our jobs, and if we tie our ability to provide for ourselves to our ability to earn profit for somebody else, many of us will simply find ourselves out of an ability to live. So I really think part of the urgency for me of taking down fundamentalist religions like Christianity and the Abrahamic trio is they are inextricably tied to capitalism, and I'm trying to get rid of the baby and the bathwater. All right, you were gonna get in here. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
So not Monday of Monday of last week, I had a unique opportunity. My brother says, "Hey, I want you to come to dinner. My treat. There's some friends that gather with me, and I want you to come and meet them because I'd only met one of them before." So I learned who these people were. At dinner, I sat next to a guy, and I was told this. I don't know this. He and I didn't talk about it. At one point, he was a billionaire and self-made guy, had some lucky breaks. Everyone else at the table, except for me, was probably worth upwards of $28 million. Everyone else, except for me. My brother paid for my meal because I didn't have $28. Um, and I'm sitting there next to this guy who I was told used to be a billionaire. And one of the first things when I start asking about his story, I had met him years ago. We went to the Super Bowl. And I said, how'd you get your start? He told me he came from very humble beginnings. And he said, I think people should work for the money to have the experience of working. He doesn't want to just give it away to his like family or something like that, which I thought was odd because my philosophy towards my wife and daughter, whatever I can save up and leave for them when I go, I want to do it. If my daughter never has to work a day of her life because I somehow figured out how to make millions of dollars and she can just go off and enjoy herself, or she wanted to be a school teacher, she can buy all her students a laptop or an iPad or whatever the heck they got in the future and give them the best education they have, right? She can take what I earned and turn it into her way of being generous to people because she will no doubt hear me say, as many of our listeners and viewers have, I'm an underfunded philanthropist. Well, here I was sitting at a table full of people who had more money than I could spend, right? But he felt this, going back to this guy, he felt it was important for people to have that adventure. But he never got into why it was hard. He tried something and it worked. It's not that he didn't have a hard time doing this or that. We never got to those stories because there's only so much time and people are going around sharing. And again, this is my first time meeting a lot of them. So I didn't know, like, their backgrounds and stuff like that. I knew my two brothers, but and this guy, I knew that much about him. because I spent like 6 minutes talking to him in the past. But here, this was a different chance. And I was just astonished that he wasn't so like excited about saying his family members, here you go. Don't worry. When I'm gone, I can't spend anyway. And one of the things he said to me, which I found remarkable, he said, I hope the last check I write bounces. He's going to spend it. He earned it. He's going to spend it. Now, I have no doubt I've been told he's quite philanthropic, but I'm like, you're not going to leave it. How do you not leave it for family members? I get not leaving it all
Yeah,
to one
he
or two
sounds like a
people.
weirdo. I think a bunch of rich people are weirdos because they have to in their heads like reconcile their position relative to everybody else. But yeah, we live in this. I was talking to my students about this. Like the economy is terrible. Like I said, wages have been flat for over 50 years. Everybody needs those advantages. It's not enough to think that that you can pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You just can't. And so you're taking the only responsible, reasonable approach, which is you do need to give your children every advantage that they can have because
Mhm.
they may not get it. Most of us will never own a home. The economy is too bad. Most of us will never be able to buy a new car. The economy is too bad. Most of us won't even be able to give y'all the grandchildren you want. You want some fucking grandchildren, you need to help us get a goddamn house to raise them in because the economy is too bad. Most of us will retire before we're able to pay off our student loan debt because the economy is too bad. And so again, like we can mess around with these Christians if you want to, y'all, but the economy is no goddamn good. So we're gonna have to figure something out. Sumami said that's not a weirdo. That's someone who was told they have to work and achieve, and now they're resentful towards life itself.
Sumami, I want to thank you for your point of view. I'm gonna see him again. He and I are gonna continue our conversation because he had to leave before, and it was getting late. I needed to go too. So before we finish, so I'm gonna see him again and pick his brain some more. And I'll ask him about that. I'll try to get the conversation going in that realm. Um, I think to some degree, to try to be fair to him, it was it was a lot of it worked for me.
Yes, yeah,
And there I was sitting next to him having I say a streak in the last year of the best luck of my life because the people who I'm related to or people who I loved leaning in so that I can lean on them and they can help me and my family. As I go through an extremely rough time. And I can say I am super lucky in that respect. And not everybody is. There's people who would have my same situation, and it's far more tragic for them than it has been for me. Because I got all these people saying, you can stay at my house next, or I'll do this for you next. I'll put you up, I'll get you an apartment next. That sort of thing. You don't have to worry about that. I'll take care of it. You don't have to worry about this. Don't worry about dinner. My brother looking at me. You don't have to pay anything. Just come on. Just be there. There's people I want you to meet. So there are people who have it rough, and there is no sugarcoating it. They have bad luck. It's things are awful for them, and they're still standing somehow. And they have to make sense out of the world the way it is and make do. And there's a certain amount of believing in oneself that may be necessary in order to make things align. It may be luck, it may be time, but you sort of feel for such people and you hope for such people, and you may not be able to do a thing to lift a finger to help any of them.
yeah,
That's reality. That's reality. And the further reality is some aren't going to make it. There's a video I sent to Pocket Locker where there's this guy standing outside. I think he was in Kansas. Some line of people waiting to get food. He goes, "Where are your red and white hats now?"
yeah,
Pointing out
yeah.
that this is MAGA country, and these
Right,
people are in a food line to
right.
get food because What? Trump cut SNAP benefits. He's preventing SNAP benefits from being distributed, actively going out his way to make sure people don't eat. What kind of human being does this?
But again, how again let's do the demographics on who voted for those people, who supports them, who's in the administration, who wrote the bills, who passed the bills, right? We go through all of that and tell me it isn't going to be 90% and higher Christians. Tell me it isn't going to
I
be
think we're far from all of
90%
that.
and higher Christians
Yeah, we are not
that
looking
are
at Jesus's agenda.
yeah. And look
Thank
at
God.
and now they're in the food line themselves, haven't been willing to take it from other people. And it just that's when you just say, I'm done with this. I'm not gonna we're not gonna keep riding on this Christianity wave, because this is what Christianity has wrought us. And it's been this way the entire history of our civilization. It's been this way since, as Ember reminded us, the first slave ship was named Jesus. It's been this way since Christians were doing Jim Crow. It's been this way since Christians were having picnics at the lynching of black people. It's been this way since Christians made Martin Luther King the most hated man in America 3 years after he was dead. Yeah, I mean, like, and gave us Nixon and Reagan and Bush and the other Bush and the first Trump administration. Like, in it's I'm spent, y'all. I'm spent. I'm spent. I don't have the energy anymore to deal with the religious, because this is what they give us every time.
I'll go back to Gary Habermas, who said one of the most beautiful quotes in human history: "It is difficult for a man to live up to his own philosophy." Bravo, Mr. Habermas.
I
Bravo.
mean, it is, except that this stuff isn't that hard. Like,
It shouldn't be.
should we continue to have SNAP benefits? Yes. Should
Yes.
should we still have the women, infant, and children program? Yes. I
Yes.
mean, this is and again, like, but these are the people that they're the reason our wages are stagnant. They're the reason we can't raise the minimum wage. Why don't we have a universal basic income?
You know,
Why do we still have $100,000 more of student loan debt? Why will most Americans go either A, bankrupt, or B, spend 90% of their accrued income in end of life medical care? Doesn't make any
I
sense.
I I find a lot of things about the way society is are hard for me, because I literally can envision ways for things to be better. Um, One thing to keep in mind for those who have power and are listening, if it comes to that down the line, is if you're taking away benefits from people at the bottom of society, right? The safety net is the only benefit they have other than the people that love them. If you take that away, then you are going to create people who are surviving. And then typically, surviving means some sort of fight is going on. Some of those people will become dangerous people, and they're going to fight you.
Yeah.
They will see you as the enemy, and they will fight you. And then all the safety you could have had by what? Giving them a good education. So if they are strong thinkers, they can create strong ideas that improve society because they had enough food in their bellies to do it. They had supportive teachers and a supportive educational system, be that at an elementary, middle, high school, or post high school level, be it either in the trades or at university. If you're constantly robbing them of that, you are robbing everyone, including yourself, of the benefits that spring out of that. And it should not be easy to vote against feeding a child. It
Right.
should not be.
Right.
And if it is easy for you to vote against feeding a child, human race doesn't need you. It just doesn't need you.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. All right. Well, look, let's wrap it up. It's been a fun one. But yeah, let's go ahead and shoot her in the head. What do you have any concluding thoughts?
I encourage everyone to go, Pocket Locker, please put a link in the chat, put a link in the description for this video. I encourage everyone to go see it. It's, again, I do think it's AI. I think it's brutally honest. And I think if there is a backlash against AI, it's coming from the church, because I bet you there's going to be so much of
Mm.
this flooding the airwaves,
Mm.
because it's, again, it's dispassionate. It doesn't give an F word about people's feelings. It just doesn't care. It's not sugarcoating anything. And it will say things in the way that I can't say them. I mean, I could. I just tend not to, because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. For the most part, there are like a
Exactly.
few people I don't care about their feelings. But for the
Yeah.
most part, even most strangers, I do care about their feelings. Most believers, almost all believers, I do care about their feelings. I don't want that person to be hurt, because I know information I have takes the faith away and leaves reality there. As the video said so beautifully, sometimes reality doesn't cooperate. And I was like, this is freaking beautiful, and it's harsh in some ways. But yeah, I'm going through it myself. Reality isn't cooperating the way I need it to. That's going to be true when it comes to matters of faith. Reality just doesn't cooperate like you need it to. That God that's in those pages isn't in the sky. He isn't in another dimension hooking people up. That's not the way it works. And it never has been. But you can believe it's that way. But that's not how it really works.
Yeah. I think more of us should be willing to speak to it like this, because like I said, most of them did not consent. Oh, none of them consented to be lied to and manipulated in this way. And it's important that we understand that their liberation is their potential liberation is just as important as our liberation. A lot of us are former believers. Um, a lot of us had to work our way out alone, and wish we had some support, wish we had some resources. Me personally, I wish somebody told me. I really do wish that somebody I cared about and respected told me that they thought it was a bunch of nonsense. It would have saved me a lot of time, and it would have made me seek out their support in deconverting. And I also just think I think the average believer in your life is doing a lot of harm. I mean, even if they are just being a really good person who happens to be identifying as a Christian, I think that's no good. I think, because again, it's not true, and the people in the positions of power that are using it are being very destructive with it. And again, if it was just all bad, it'd be easier to get rid of it. So when you have these really good people, they're doing the salesmanship. They're the ones that are selling and convincing people that this Christianity is actually a good thing, and that it's in that good people do it, right? So it doesn't help. Like that's like in my family, like most of them are all right. They're like decent people, but that's the problem. They keep attaching their decency to Christianity, which just makes the next generation believe you need to be a Christian to be decent. And so
Yeah.
it's not helping, especially because it's not true. So I do wish we just had the courage of our convictions so we could tell people. And I do think that that is ultimately what will end the religion. It's not going to be a counter revival in the sense of mass people walking away. That is going to happen, But my prediction is that what will predate that is the rest of people leaving it alone and no
Mm-hmm.
longer paying it the respect that they have traditionally. Essentially treating it like, yeah, you can believe that if you want to, but we know it's not true and it's just kind of silly. And so
Yes.
it's a combination of almost like bless your heart. You know how Christians are, like they don't say F you, they're like bless your heart. Like, wow, I'm gonna pray for you. Like when we start treating them like that, that's what I think we really like. It was like, oh, you're a Christian. Ooh, oh, bless your heart. That's precious. Yeah.
Ugh.
And then right, right. And then when they like and then when they ask you like, will you come to church with me this Sunday? You just kind of chuckle, just kind of no, sorry, I'll do that. I'll mess with nothing like that. Right. Just that, like
Or
that's
only if I
how,
get to explain it to you afterwards.
yeah, right. Like I think like when we get there, they're just gonna stop because the reason they do it now is it makes such an impression on people. People are so impressed with their faith. People are so impressed with their Christianity. And so they use that. And if it became the thing that people just found silly and laughed at them over, Christianity would end rapidly. I don't think it's ever going to end. There's always going to be the hangers on
It'll
and
always be,
the
yeah, a few
yeah,
people.
if you're willing to dance with poisonous snakes or whatever over this, then you're probably going to be a believer no matter what. But it'll cease to be something the rest of us need to concern ourselves with.
Hmm. I agree. All right,
All
Pakalaka,
right,
thank you
gang.
so much for putting all this together. I do appreciate it. Thank you, audience, for watching and listening. We
Yeah, as always,
appreciate you.
gang.